Hi, I'm Keith Bensel, and I want to talk to you today about how I got into property management when I was 15 years old. And so my dad was a maintenance technician for Kenwood Investments out of Bala, Kenwood, and he was hired to work at two office buildings in downtown Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And they also owned two apartment complexes. One was 156 units, the other was 201 units. And so my dad primarily worked at the two office buildings downtown. Specifically, there was one called the Bartow Building, which was directly across from the steps of the Capitol building. And so he would bring me into those buildings all the time and actually got me a job working in the evenings janitorial after I would be done with school for the day. He would run me back into the buildings, and then I would stay there throughout the evening cleaning them 5 days a week. And then the days that I didn't have school or I would be, quote, sick, I would often go in with him to the buildings, help him open them up in the morning. At that time, a lot of things were not automated, so you had to open every floor, turn on every light, just check the building and whatnot. And we would be there about an hour or better before people would start to show up. Nowadays, you have key card access systems and all kinds of things going on. And so it's definitely more sophisticated than it was back in 1997 and 98 and 99. And so when I was with him, like my brother, he would come in and he'd find a place in the basement where he could go to sleep, whereas I would be in the lobby watching what was going on, talking to the quote tenants of the building, which they were rented out to the state at that time. And so I would watch the workings of the building. When people would come in to work on the HVAC systems in the building, I would watch that stuff. When the elevator service companies like Otis and Schindler would come in. And so I was very interested in the operations of the building. Even when nobody was there, like in the mechanical parts of the building, I would go in and I would look them over. I would learn the names of the systems. I would crawl up into the top of the elevator shaft where all the mechanicals were housed, and I would watch how they work when people used the elevators. And I was just obsessed with properties and how they worked and the construction of them, how to manage them. And at one point, during my high school years, going into 10th grade, leaving 9th and going into 10th grade, I decided I was gonna become a property manager once I graduated high school. So what I did was I enrolled in Dauphin County Technical School in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I learned the faucets of, mostly they covered residential construction and maintenance at that time, back in the late 90s. And so what I was involved in was learning how to drywall and I said, how can you be a property manager and you have no idea what your maintenance guys are supposed to be doing in the building? When you hire a vendor and you sign a capital improvement project contract, how are you supposed to know that they're really doing it and not cutting corners and things like that? So I said, if I want to be a property manager, I need to know what my vendors are doing and I need to know what my maintenance guys, I can't supervise them correctly without the proper training. And so I spent 3 years learning building construction and maintenance, again, mostly residential, the basics, drywall, how to finish it, how to hang drywall, run electric, plumbing, shingling roofs, things like that. And so it was the basics, and it was actually so cool that it was supposed to get you ready to become a maintenance guy at an apartment complex. I said, how fitting is that? And because I was so interested in real estate at that time and I was working cleaning buildings in the evenings, I was stacking money and I was taking real estate courses. And I enrolled and took a course through the International Council of Shopping Centers for shopping center management. And of course, that's you can apply that across the board, right? So when you're talking about security of properties and you're talking about setting budgets and just tenant improvements and capital improvements and all the things that go into running a property, I feel like they're cross training you on that. You can use that in an office building. You can apply that even to rent rolls for residential. So I really love the learning of that course. At that time, it wasn't online. They sent you a 3-ring binder with a bunch of stuff that you had to read and fill out. And then you had to write a report like you were managing a shopping center and apply everything you learned from that course into the report that you submit in order to pass the course. And so I did that when I was like 16, 17 years old. And when I was going into my senior year that summer, I asked my dad's boss, and again, he was a maintenance technician for Kenwood Investments out of Bala Kenwood, which is in the Philly area. But we were living and working in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania at their 4 properties that they had there. And so what I did was I approached my dad's boss and I said, Helen, can I work with you in the rental office? And I want to do an internship this summer with Kenwood Investments. And she said, absolutely, you can help us in the rental office. Now, I basically did little things like filing, answering the phone, organizing keys. Basically she was also cleaning out a lot of things that she were past the date you need to keep them, like 5 to 7 years. And so I was shredding documents and just helping her organize her office. And she had 4 offices, so she had one at each property, some of which she used more than others, but it was a landing spot when she would go to those properties to be able to meet with people. And so I worked at the Commerce Building on the 11th floor with her in an internship that summer. When I graduated high school, I said, I'm going to be a property manager. I immediately started applying for property management positions. And of course, I'm 18 years old. Who's going to hand the keys to an 18-year-old to multi-million dollars worth of properties, right? So I found a private owner that was looking to have somebody part-time join his team and help manage properties. And at that time, he had 56 units that were scattered. So we're talking the single families through, maybe a 9-unit building. He had an industrial park at that time, which was 6 or 7 buildings at that property, I think around 40,000 square feet. That was an on-again, off-again thing because I really wanted to be with a professional company and somebody who followed standards and kept to proper budgeting, kept to proper reserves for capital improvements, actually put money back every month to pay your property taxes and things like that. So it was an on-again, off-again thing. But I was a property manager right at 18 years old, which is incredible. And I would leave and I would come back and leave and come back because I was also building a commercial cleaning business, right? Because I had done janitorial throughout my high school in the evenings. And so I said, well, why work for another janitorial service? I can build my own. And so that's what I did. I built it, and I built it to 14 employees. I even had a part-time salesperson in the office for a while and stuff, and we were getting a lot of good contracts, and I sold that business. But my heart and my passion has always been with property management, right? It always has been. You guys just heard the story of me growing up around these properties. And I remember even, going back to when I was in high school, when my brother would come in and go to sleep in the buildings, I would be interested in the buildings. When we would go to the apartment complexes to help out with things like trimming or removing bushes or whatever they asked my dad to do, he would go and do that, and I would hang out in the rental office. I remember there was a pool at the 201 unit, and they said, bring your swim trunks. I didn't bring them. Why? Because I wanted to hang out in the rental office. And I remember processing 201 water bills when I was 16 years old. Like, it's always been my love and passion of properties. And so I went back and forth with this private owner, but through the years, he really built his portfolio. And I would say at one point, his highest point when I was still working for him, that he had reached a pinnacle of well over 400 units and they were really different type properties. So you'd have a lot of multifamilies, but you had the industrial park that he had when I started there when I was 18. And he bought a mobile home park with 38 lots. He bought self-storage properties. He bought mixed use properties where there was this 4-story building. And so I stayed with him and I managed these properties with him as I would leave because I'd get upset at him and his lack of proper business ethics, maybe is the best word for it. And so I worked with him, and I felt like I was a pinnacle of helping him build that, because there were many properties that I would be managing, like the industrial park and the mobile home park, and there would be other properties that there was managers that would be just not cutting it. So he had a couple property managers as he continued to buy more properties. That's my career. I started when I was 15 with the love and passion of property management. It always will be my passion. I'm not an active property manager in a rental office today, but I could still consider myself a property manager. Why? Because property management is not just a job. It's not just even a career. Property management's a lifestyle. That's your baby. Like, somebody hands you keys to a multi-million-dollar real estate asset or portfolio, and just as well as you won't leave your baby alone, right? You're not going to leave your properties alone. They can't be, because if you become an absentee manager and you stay away from certain properties for an extended period of time, I guarantee you when you come back, you're going to have a lot of stuff to take care of, because properties are you eat, sleep, and breathe every day, whether you're there or not, right? So things are going on. And that's what I wanted to press upon this video, both when I started, give you some history, give you an introduction to the types of things we're going to cover, because we're going to go over properties that I purchased even through my career, properties that I managed and where they are today, what they're being appraised for, how you look at a heating system and the proper preventative maintenance programs you should have set up for your heating systems in your buildings and throughout your property. And I'll just teach you from 20 years of real hands-on experience, some crazy things that have happened. I'll post some really amazing, funny stories that have happened. We used to always say that we're going to write a book about property management and all the things that we ran into being a property manager, because this just doesn't happen in other careers. This is a lifestyle. And in order to be successful, you have to love property management. And so I hope you'll stick with me for everything that I've learned. So maybe it'll make it easier on you. Maybe you're a new owner that's just looking to get into properties, and I'd love to help you with that. I do offer VA services, so a virtual assistant. And so I have even just introductory packages where you can go on my website and sign up for something, as well as just from a distance, remote, keeping your applications moving and uploading documents, processing invoices, following up with your vendors, making sure they have proper certificates of insurance. Those are all things that I can do for you, and many more. So I hope you'll stick with me. I hope you'll like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.